So I'll just call this example 1. And in each of these examples, we are going to factor. So let's look at x squared minus, we'll do 3x plus 10. Okay. Now I know that this is going to factor into the form of x plus something times x plus something else, right? So something like this. Okay. So let's talk about this. Our value of b in this problem is -3. This is my value of c. It is 10. So basically what we are looking for is we're looking for two numbers whose sum is -3. So the sum is -3. And the product is 10. Okay? So what I like to think about is I like to think about the different products of 10, and then I see which ones give me the sum. So products of 10 would be 10 times 1, and another one would be 5 times 2. Right? Now 10 times 1 is, I messed up. Okay, let's look at an example. So we have x squared minus 3x, and let's do minus 10. Actually, let's change that to a plus 3x. So x squared plus 3x minus 10. Okay, so in this problem, I first am going to recognize the form that it is taken. This is a quadratic trinomial in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c, and I can see that my value of a equals 1. Right, so these are just things that I'm thinking off to the side. When I recognize that form, I know that my answer or my factored form is going to be of the form x plus some number times x plus some other number. And remember, the reason why it's x and x is because when you multiply those first terms, that x times x, that's where that x squared is coming from. Okay, so we're sort of taking that x squared and we're splitting it up. Okay, so the next thing that you're going to do is you're going to recognize your b and your c. So my value of b is positive 3, and my value of c is negative 10. So what we have to do is we have to come up with something that has a sum of my b value, which is 3, and a pair of numbers that also have a product of my c value, which is negative 10. So what I like to do is think about products of negative 10, and then I'll figure out which one has a sum of 3. You can do this thought process in your head, or you can write things down to sort of think about it visually on the paper. So ways to multiply to negative 10 would be 5 times negative 2, negative 5 times positive 2, 10 times negative 1, and negative 10 times positive 1. Right? All of those will give you negative 10. So looking through, seeing which ones give you a sum of 3, this doesn't work, this doesn't work, this gives you negative 9, this gives you positive 9, this gives you negative 3, close, but not quite right. The only one that gives you a sum of 3 is this one right here. So this is the pair of numbers that are going to work. So when I go to put these in place, it's going to be x plus a positive 5 and x plus a negative 2, which we won't write as x plus negative 2. We will just write it as minus 2. So we erase that plus sign and put the minus. Okay? And then this is going to be your final answer. Okay, let's look at another example here. Example 2. In example 2, we are going to do, let's do x squared minus 11x plus 30. Again, these are things that you're thinking in your head. I have a trinomial where the a value in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c, where the value of a is 1. If that is the case, it will factor into two binomials of the form x plus some number times x plus some other number, right? And we'll fill in those numbers after we've thought about this a little bit. Recognize your value of b. Your value of b is negative 11. Your value of c is 30. Okay? Remember that the two numbers that you're looking for should have a sum of this number, and they should have a product of this number. So I'm looking for numbers that have a product of 30 and a sum of negative 11. And all of this that I'm writing in pink off to the side are things that you can definitely do in your head. I'm just writing down what I'm thinking. You don't need to write that part down. So let's think of things that give us a product of 30. So a product of 30 would be things like 6 times 5, also 5 times 6, obviously, but that's the same thing. Is there other ways to multiply to a positive number? Because if I think about this example that I have, 6 times 5, 30 times 1, sorry, I guess there's more, 15 times 2, well, there's lots of options there. But if I think about this, when I add 15 and 2 together, that's going to give me 17. So that's not going to work. That's not even close to 11. 30 plus 1 is going to give me 31. That's not going to work either. So 6 plus 5, that gives me 11. I want negative 11. So what do you think you could do to these two numbers to make sure that you still get a product of positive 30, but when you add them together, you get a negative 11? Right, you could make them both be negative. Okay, as negative 6 times negative 5 is positive 30. 6 times 5 is also positive 30. But which one of these, when you sum them or add them together, is going to give you negative 11? Yes, it's going to be this one. So that means when I go to put my numbers back in over here, I'm going to do x plus a negative 6, which is just a minus 6. And I'm going to do x plus a negative 5, which is a minus 5. Okay? So then this is going to be your answer. Let's do one more example. In our last example here, let's do x squared, minus 4x minus 21. So again, this is a quadratic in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c, where my value of a is 1, and my value of b is negative 4, and my value of c is negative 21. Anytime the value of a is 1, so if a equals 1, right? So again, thinking to yourself, if a equals 1, yay, thinking that, right? If a equals 1, then I know that this is going to factor into the form of x plus some number times x plus some other number. If those plus if those plus signs change to a negative, then I will change it when we get to that point. Now, think to yourself. Remember, we want two numbers that when you multiply them, you get the value of c, but when you add them, you get negative 4. Think about the sum versus product, right? So I want two numbers whose sum is negative 4 and whose product is negative 21. Okay, ways to multiply to 21. That's going to be 7 times -3. Oh, sorry, product of -21. 7 times -3, -7 times +3. Now, I also know that I have 21 times -1, but when you add those together, they're not going to give you -4, so that's not going to work. -21 times 1, again, when you add those together, that's not going to work. So you might not even think about those. You're like, okay, it's between these two. Which of these two, when you add them together, is going to give you -4? And the answer to that is going to be this option here, right? So the option is -7 times 3, because these two numbers give me a product of -21 and a sum of -4. Whenever the value of b is negative, you'll notice that your bigger number is going to have to be negative. So it's going to be x plus -7, which I'm going to write as x minus 7. And it's going to be x plus a +3, so I'm going to write it as 3. So then this is your answer. So you're going to get a lot more practice with this, and the idea is that eventually you should be able to do this and do all this sort of thought process in your head. But if it helps you to write these numbers down off to the side, please make sure that you do that. Okay? So if you have questions about this, obviously we will be working on this together. We will be practicing it more, and I will be presenting more examples in other videos. So if you like this video, hit like, subscribe to my channel so you can easily access my videos, and good luck with your practice.